A warm, warm welcome to each one of you. So nice to be here practicing together. Welcome, Kat and Beth. Yeah, so this is the Sunday Sounds of Dhamma. And that means that our usual program is about 10 minutes or so of guided meditation, half an hour of Dhamma talk, and a little time at the end there for reflections and questions, and then a final dedication of merit. And before I get started, I will say that movie night is coming up, January 29th. We're going to watch a film for folks who are local and can come in person. We're going to watch a film about Xuanzang, about the monk who traveled from China to India to go get the suttas and his great adventure there. And other things that are happening, so there's another art workshop, Buddhist art workshop. This time we'll be visiting the caves at Dunhuang, Mogao, and Maijishan in the far western reaches of China, some of the earliest Buddhist cave art in China. Virtually, of course. And what else is happening? Registration is open for various and sundry retreats in English and in Spanish. So just so you know, all of that is on the website.
Are there links to the earlier art talks? I couldn't find them.
They haven't been posted yet. We're going to post, my hope is that after I do the one with the caves, then we're going to start a playlist on YouTube and post a group of them together. Yeah, thank you. We are a little bit behind, I will say that, on the posting of the talks, but I'm trying to get them caught up a little bit. One of our volunteers had some trouble and couldn't get things going, so we're just catching up right now. And that's always a good thing to mention, which is if you like the YouTube videos, please like them, because that helps the Dharma get shared with other people. That's how the algorithm works. So, all right. Beautiful. So for our meditation today, I always like to have the meditation be related to the talk. And so for today, what I'd like to do is have us do a meditation about the process nature of experience. So it's really an exploration or an investigation of how things are related, and particularly mental phenomena, how mental phenomena are related one after the other. So we'll start as usual by settling into the body, and then we'll have a few minutes to try this out. So I always like to begin with a bit of movement in the body, just loosening up whatever tension you can release at the time. And also perhaps not leaning toward the computer, and just allowing the body to find an upright and balanced posture. And sensing the weight of the body on your seat. Or on whatever supports you might be using. Really allowing the body to settle right here in this place. And perhaps you're also noticing the breath, breathing the body. And you could just allow it to have its natural rhythms, nourishing you just as it does all day when you're not watching. And now turning the attention to mental activity. Just becoming aware of thoughts and perceptions. Aware of them as a stream, the flow, one thought followed by another. Even the bodily perceptions have an element of thought to them. Just noticing the process. Staying curious about mental activity, just watching it as a flow. All right, friends. That's our taste of meditation for today, for this moment. Maybe someone wants to grab the chant cards, unless you all three know the chant. And folks online, give me just a moment here. I put it under Namo Tassa so that I would be able to find it quickly each time. All right, so this is the homage to the Triple Gem, just honoring, maybe some gratitude for the Buddha and awakening and the teachings and the truths they point to, and the Sangha, the great community. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. I often find myself speaking about courage or fearlessness as a necessary ingredient for being on this path of awakening. And so often I think when I am reading about or seeing things that are happening in the world, I think about how much fear is happening, how driven people are by fear. And so I want to talk today about courage and about fearlessness and a little bit about what the Dhamma has to say about such a thing. So if we look at the teachings across various traditions, we see often two ways to think about how fearlessness arises in a person. And the first one has to do with ethics, actually. When I choose or you choose to live an upright life, a life that is based in the principles of non-harming and honesty and non-greed, generosity, then we become safe for other people who understand what we're doing, and they may only intuitively understand, or they may know us well enough to know our practice. They know and can feel more safe in that intention, that even if we break the precept or we make mistakes, that we will do our best to repair and come back to that heart of compassion. And when that kind of is a setting the wheel of goodness going, when that kind of momentum gets started, then you can also feel less fear. Even if the other people that you're working with don't share this intention, you know where you're coming from. You know your ability to respond to a world that may or may not be trying to harm you. You know, the Buddha sets a very high bar in this regard. He gave the simile of the saw. The simile of the saw is that even if someone were to attack you, that you wouldn't raise a thought of harm against them. That you would just really understand that they were coming from their own delusion. So that's a very high bar, I think, you know. But it says something about the degree to which our response to the world is our responsibility, is our practice. Whether the world is kind to us or not. That particular sutta is about when people speak nasty to you. He says people may speak harshly or they may speak kindly. But certainly they're not attacking you with a saw. So no matter what they say, you should be able, you could be able, perhaps with some practice, to keep that heart of compassion and that understanding in your own heart, that fearlessness. Yeah, that fearlessness. Not that words don't have power. Words have a tremendous amount of power. But we still also have our own power to choose our response in life. You know, I think about, for some reason, I have been thinking about Nelson Mandela a lot, although I know it's Martin Luther King Jr. Day tomorrow. And I always, every year, I think I don't teach enough of his stuff, really. I really am very inspired by the great Reverend Dr. King, but maybe I'll do a better job this month. In any event, it's Nelson Mandela who comes to mind, and he said, among other things, I'm going to give you like 3 quotes from him today. He said, you know, when I walked out of that prison, I knew that if I didn't leave behind the anger and the bitterness, I'm paraphrasing now, that if I didn't leave behind the anger and the bitterness, that I'd still be in prison, actually. After 27 years of being, what seems to me, unjustly imprisoned, right? He was fighting for the rights of the people who were there first, of the people whose land it originally was. And yet still he knew in his own heart that he had to have that fearlessness and that willingness, that huge courage to not let his heart be hardened by the difficulties that he faced. So surely we in our own lives can do that too, right? Surely we can try to do that too. So ethics again, perhaps as the 16 Bodhisattva precepts, or perhaps as the 5 or the 8 lay precepts of the Theravada, or the 10 or the 227 or the 311, or on and on, or just the intention, right? Just that beautiful intention of compassion, non-harming, truthfulness, non-greed. Those things are what will bring us a feeling of safety in our own hearts. So ethics is one of the key ways that we can establish a sense of fearlessness in our lives. And sometimes that's a little counterintuitive, but I think you have to try it out. For me, I felt like the world responds differently when I when I am coming from that place. The world intuitively responds differently. But then the second way is also a little demanding. Hence the courage. Yes, the second way of establishing some fearlessness is through wisdom, is through insight into the true nature of phenomena. And it sometimes it can seem a little counterintuitive, this approach. So I brought with me a sutra in this case, a Mahayana Sutra, to help frame a little bit of how this process might work. And it's called the Heart Sutra, Prajna Paramita Hridaya Sutra in Sanskrit. Most of the Mahayana sutras are have been recorded and have been carried through the ages in the Sanskrit, as distinct from the Pali Nikayas. And the Heart Sutra is very interesting. It's a very, you could say, it's a very kind of legendary approach to how to live your life. And it can be a little heady. But it's a conversation. It starts out, oh, sorry about that. I'm going to have to learn how to turn off that little sound that happens. It's a conversation between Avalokiteshvara and Sariputta. So Avalokiteshvara is what we call a transcendental bodhisattva. It's a bodhisattva with great powers, way beyond human powers. There are many of them. So a bodhisattva is a word that the Buddha originally used to refer to himself before he woke up, before his enlightenment. He referred to himself as the bodhisattva. And it means an awakening being, literally. He would have referred to himself maybe slightly differently because he spoke Magadhan, so we don't know exactly the word, but the Sanskrit word is bodhisattva. And that word bodhisattva comes to be the sort of practice paradigm, or the mode of practice that is upheld as a role model in the Mahayana. Becoming an awakening being that helps all beings to awaken, just as the Buddha did after his enlightenment. But these transcendental bodhisattvas are not people who are bodhisattvas, but rather this kind of face that we put on a quality. So there's Avalokiteshvara, is known also as Chenrezig, or as Kanon, or as Kanjizai, or as Guanyin. Many, she, he, she, they, it. It's known all over the Buddhist world by various names. And so Avalokiteshvara is the Sanskrit name, the original name of this being. And again, you can decide for yourself whether you really think it's a being or a way of relating to that quality of compassion. But they are having a conversation with Venerable Sariputta. Venerable Sariputta is an actual human being, as far as we know. He was one of the Buddha's main disciples. He was actually who the Buddha had designated as one of his top 2 disciples. And Sariputta gives many of the discourses in the Pali Nikayas, and was known for being able to further expound on a pithy teaching that the Buddha would give. The Buddha would give a short teaching, and then everybody would go to Sariputta and say, what did he mean by that? And Sariputta would explain in more detail. So did this conversation actually historically happen? Well, I suppose that's for each of you to decide for yourselves. But the sutta is a very short one, and it begins with Avalokiteshvara having a realization of absolute peace. It says Avalokiteshvara relieves all suffering. And it's interesting because that line, it's not clear whether it's Avalokiteshvara relieving all of their own suffering or all of the suffering of all beings. And there's a reason for that. And I'm not going to go line by line through the whole sutta. That would take a class. There's actually a class, if anybody's interested in more on this. There's a 6-week class that is actually on the Dassanaya website under English video teachings. But what I do want to talk about is about 2/3 of the way down the sutta, there is this line about fearlessness, this teaching about fearlessness. And so you know me, I like to have different translations at hand. So this one happens to be by Thich Nhat Hanh, Thai, as he was lovingly known by his students and other folks who appreciated his teachings. And Thai did a very interesting thing. In 2014, he decided that the translation of the Heart Sutra that he'd been taught and that he was using at his monasteries was misleading people, wasn't good. And he decided to do a whole new translation of the sutra. And I thought, oh, that's to me, a very honorable thing to do, right? That after so many years, that rather than say, no, this is the tradition, or this is how we've always done it, or this is what that really means, or he chose to say, no. I would like to be more clear. I would like to help my students be more clear. I'm willing to make what some people might consider a pretty radical change by retranslating the sutra. So good on him for having done that. And they put out a little book, you know, Thai had many, many, many books, right? So of course they put out a little book, and it's called The Other Shore. And so there's after Avalokiteshvara has their realization and says, listen, Sariputta, and starts to give Sariputta a teaching. That's how Thai translates it. There is this part. So the teaching is about the emptiness of phenomena. And I'll say more about what that means in a moment. But anyway, it says, whoever can see this, meaning the emptiness of phenomena, no longer needs anything to attain. Or I would switch that around and say, no longer needs to attain anything. Bodhisattvas who practice the insight that brings us to the other shore. So this sutta is part of a group of suttas called the Prajna Paramita. Usually that's translated as the wisdom beyond wisdom, or the highest wisdom. But Thai likes to translate it as the insight that brings us to the other shore, because that's the alternative translation of paramita. Paramita is also, it can be understood as the highest or the pinnacle, or it can be understood as moving from this shore to the other side. So bodhisattvas who practice the highest wisdom, or the insight that brings us to the other shore, see no more obstacles in their mind. And because there are no more obstacles in their mind, they can overcome all fear, destroy all wrong perceptions, and realize perfect nirvana. Mm. So the San Francisco Zen Center translation of this is, with nothing to attain, a bodhisattva relies on prajnaparamita, and thus the mind is without hindrance, and without hindrance there is no fear. Far beyond all inverted views, one realizes nirvana. So the insight that is being pointed to there is this insight about emptiness of things. And emptiness of things means empty of independence. So for a thing to be empty, we have to say that it's empty of something, right? The box is empty of the cat for now, until he gets a chance to sit in it. So it's empty of independence, or empty of creating a self, a permanent, eternal, standalone kind of thing. And the sutta, after Avalokiteshvara states that, has this realization and calls Sariputta's attention, it goes through a variety of the traditional Buddhist frameworks. So it starts out with the body, for example, with the form. And it says, yes, this body too is empty. And you think, wait a minute, how is this body is a solid thing? What does it mean to say that this body is empty? But what it means is that it's not independent, so it is dependent. It is dependent on conditions and causes. It arises as a momentary thing that is the completion, or you could say the kind of harmonious coming together of the causes and conditions that are necessary for this body to be here. So if I didn't have enough water, then eventually the proper causes and conditions for this body to be here wouldn't be manifesting. And that would be the end of that, right? It takes about 7 days, they say. So the form is empty, the body is empty in the sense that it is a conditioned thing. It is, we could think of it as just like a construction. And it's a construction that is continually falling apart and coming together and falling apart and coming together all at the same time. That is what we mean by emptiness. It is not an independent thing that exists from its own side. That's sometimes how it's also described, especially in the Tibetan traditions, the Vajrayana traditions. It doesn't exist from its own side. It exists only and supported by, literally, an indescribable number of conditions, right? All of the things that are necessary. So another thing that's helpful is gravity, right? I'm sitting here and I have this particular shape of my body because of gravity. If there were less gravity, I might be floating around. You guys might think I'm more spiritual, but I would look different. You know, I would look different. So all of these things are at play. And maybe that is a little bit hard to accept. Maybe we really want to think that this thing is always going to wake up tomorrow. I know that I went around like that for a long, long time. That I always believed that I would wake up the next morning. But now I know better. Now I know better. Because maybe the conditions change. And that's okay, you know, that I've found my peace with that. I'm okay with that. So if you get an email from me that says, oh, I'm planning to see you then, if all goes well, it doesn't mean I'm hedging. It means like if I'm still alive. So to begin to even think about and talk about our lives, our bodies as empty is a shift. Is a shift. And then our thoughts, oh boy, right? Then the ideas and the concepts. So the sutta proceeds through all of the various key frameworks, like the Four Noble Truths and the dependent origination, even the idea that things are dependently originated. It says that's also empty. Uh-oh, now what? Wait a minute, I just understood the whole concept of things as conditional. But even that is empty, empty of independence, right? It's an idea. It is a mere category. It is a mere imputation, a way that we put some understanding on the reality that's happening to us. You know, we say, in Zen, we like to say, the map is not the territory, right? So that map of the five aggregates or the dependent origination, the cycle of dependent origination or the Four Noble Truths, those things are super helpful if you're trying to get from point A to point B or from point A to point B to point A. But they are not the territory, they are not the experience itself. And so what happens when there is this experience of the depth, the extent, the sort of pervasiveness of this body and this mind as a conditional thing, in actuality, not in my idea of it, but in actuality, well, then what happens? Then you have this situation of, well, this thing is related to this thing, is related to that thing, is related to that thing, is related to that thing. And then you have boundlessness. Then you have a mind and a body that is completely embedded in the fabric of everything. So there are no obstacles. That's why the sutta says, then there are no obstacles in the mind. There are no walls between me and anything else. It might be distantly related or it might be close up. But either way, any wall is a mere idea. A mere concept. So that mind of no walls and no boundaries, it doesn't fear what's coming because it knows that what's coming is what must be there based on the conditions. because it knows that that is how the thing works. Even death is the thing that must happen. Or the next moment of life. So what would it be to live with a mind completely without obstructions? Wow. You can get a taste of that in various meditations, but I would suggest that really the simplest approach is the more, not just more accessible, but also more effective in a way. So, a few years back, I was living at a monastery out in California, and I was on a solitary retreat. And those are kind of nice because there's no talking involved. And for me, that means a certain degree of ease in the mind when there's less talking. And so I was sitting out there on the deck having my tea, my afternoon tea, or it's probably coffee because I don't drink tea usually. It was tea time, but I'm probably drinking coffee, sitting out there on the deck. And it's in the woods in California, about probably an hour downslope from Lake Tahoe, if that means anything to you, way out there in the Sierra foothills, the foothills of the Sierra Mountains. And we're out there, I'm out there in the forest, and so there's, some oak trees and the gophers in the ground there watching me drink my coffee. And I'm watching him too. And there's an overcast day, and suddenly, there's a break in the clouds, and it suddenly becomes a bright sunny day. And for a moment, the tree casts a shadow. It cast a shadow on the ground. And I noticed that for a minute. I was like, oh, yeah. And then the clouds came back together. And then it's not so bright and sunny anymore. And then the tree doesn't have a shadow anymore. And for whatever reason, for the reason of being on retreat, I suppose, I thought, oh, wow, look at that. That's what we call specific conditionality. When there is this condition present, then there is that manifestation. When the sunlight is present enough, then there is a shadow of the tree. And when there is not enough sunlight for that, then there is no shadow. And you could say that your sense of self is the same way. That your sense of self is like the shadow of the tree. That as long as you are looking at the world in a particular light that misses the conditionality, the depth, the pervasiveness, the steady constant of conditionality, then you will always be casting this shadow of a self over what's happening. But even just to see these moment by moment shifts, these moment by moment ways in which the world is changing, our bodies are changing, our perceptions are happening, our selfing is happening. just that degree of observation is helpful. Sooner or later, the mind is willing to take it in to such a degree that it cannot be denied. It cannot be ignored. And when that happens, there's tremendous freedom. There's nothing to defend. There is nothing to defend. It is just this life doing what this life does. So, to return to what the sutta was saying, oh gosh, my time's almost up. Sorry, guys. I just see a wax. What? I get very passionate about this. So just to read the sutta again for you at the end here, and then we'll open it up for a few minutes of questions. Whoever can see this, meaning emptiness, no longer needs to attain anything. Bodhisattvas who practice with the highest wisdom see no more obstacles in their mind. And because there are no more obstacles in their mind, they overcome all fear, destroy all wrong perceptions, and realize perfect peace, nirvana. So keep having coffee with the gophers. Keep watching your life. Keep watching. Keep be willing to really receive what's happening in your life. And the truths will open up for you quite naturally. All right, friends. We have less than 5 minutes, but I'm happy to stay over a little bit if there are more comments or questions, really. I'm happy to respond to any kinds of reflections or questions. Yeah, so let's have Fumio go first, and then Stig, you could be second.
I'll be brief. Thank you, Dhammadīpā. Dhammadīpā, this is just a terminology, like in the traditional understanding is in the Zen tradition is when we say Buddha nature, is it equal to emptiness, or is it more like it would be a feature of that, if you know what I mean? So that's a question. And little sharing, the Plum Village is a beautiful recording of the insight that brings us to the other shore. It's very simple melody, and the brothers and sisters sing it just very beautiful, and it's for free on YouTube. So if anyone is interested, I can actually drop a link, and I think I'm going to listen to it after the talk.
Beautiful, yes, they do such beautiful chants. Plum Village, it's true. Yeah, so to respond to your question about Buddha nature, I can say quite comfortably that there are many interpretations of Buddha nature. But here's my interpretation of Buddha nature based on the Mahayana view that I have been trained in. So when we say Buddha, we mean awake. Awake to what? Awake to the truth of reality, right? Awake to the way reality really is, and aware of that in some way, right? So to be of the nature of a Buddha is to be, you could say, aware of reality and to be kind of harmonious with it, right? A Buddha is someone who has dropped off any kind of resistance at all, right? No greed, no hatred, no delusion, no unwholesome states at all. And so, in a sense, you could say that we are all fundamentally that way. We just don't know it yet. Right? We are all harmonious with the truths of reality, and we are all aware in some way or knowing in some way. So is Buddha nature that wholeness? I mean, yes, it has to be that wholeness, right? It has to be all the things, because all the things, you could say, have that quality of being true to reality and being held within that awareness. So, but again, I think it's important, this distinction between being that thing and actually being aware that you are that thing, right? So that's where realization comes in, and that's why also there's a various ways of understanding Buddha nature as like a quality that you have, or like a jewel you would have in your pocket, for example. There's a very famous sutta that talks about it that way. And I think, no. It's not one piece of you. It is all of you, and it is all of everything. It's just that, again, there's this other aspect of the experience, or you could say the non-experience of it, because it's beyond your personal experience. I hope that all means something, Fumio. Yes. Okay, good. Stig?
Yeah, I love the term non-specific conditionality, because I related that to Nibbana. And I don't know if that's a correct relationship, but I think of then the conditional Nibbana, or not conditional,
Specific
having
conditionality.
specific conditionality is sort of a drop-to-drop development of that non-conditional. Here again, this is the predicament, I guess, the blessing of a short-term memory as well. I don't know. It's kind of wild that, but I think you get the gist of what I'm posing here. I can try to a little more specific. But
I think so. I mean, I've not heard this term used, this phrase used this way, non-specific conditionality. I mean, I'm not sure that you could say that about Nibbana, truthfully, because Nibbana doesn't have any conditions. I mean, Nibbana is the absence of everything. You could say it's kind of the backdrop on which emptiness is emptiness. Yeah, I'm not sure, Stig, that I would go in that direction with it.
okay, yeah,
Okay, but it's up,
yeah, yeah.
you
I
could
think
study for yourself whether you see such a thing as non-specific conditionality. That's what I would do. Conduct an investigation.
Yeah, I think of the drop by drop the river becomes. That's the translation of a Persian development of emptiness, if you will, flow experience versus interruptions and realizations of having had the interruption. It's so anyway, it landed very nicely for me to hearing that term. The first time I ever heard it, non-specific conditionality.
Did I say that? I don't think I said that.
Oh, well, maybe you didn't, but that's what I heard. So I have a predicament.
Okay.
Okay. All right. That's interesting. Yeah.
I don't think I said that.
Okay. Well,
there
maybe
you go.
you hear the
Something could
talk.
come.
I have to hear the talk, right?
Now we'll have to hear the recording.
All right. Okay. That was it. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, Olivia.
Well, thank you for the talk. He explained so nicely how all the things or the conditions are at play, and that from moment to moment, a phenomena is falling apart, and when the conditions are right, created again. And I can't point to this point But this pauses from an intellectual view. There must be a pause between the falling and the next creation. And I was wondering if in this pause there's the unconditioned, if there's nirvana.
Yeah, I would say yes. When we fall into, at least that's how I can explain the experience of it, when we fall into the space between experiences, between moments of phenomena, between moments of knowing, that is where we can experience the unconditioned. But it's not that it lives there, right? It's just kind of like that's the background, so to speak. Although again, it's not a place, right? Thank you, Olivia. Yes. Okay. Did anybody else have their hand up? All right. I don't know if Dana was going to make the announcement or something here in the chat. Oh, this is the YouTube, okay, of the chanting.
I can.
Okay, Dana.
The practice of giving and receiving has been a part of Buddhism since its inception. Giving to the Dassanaya Buddhist Community supports our guiding teacher, Dhammadīpā, the physical location at the vihara, and allows us to continue to offer Buddhist teachings in the support of awakening of all beings. Our support pages are on the website under the support tab, several ways, including the new support opportunity for Journey that supports Dhammadīpā's February pilgrimage. And nice to see you all today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dana. And yes, thanks to everyone who's providing the supports and their presence. And one other announcement that I want to make that I didn't make earlier is that the Tuesday tune-in will be starting up again in February. So we're going to do a rotation, myself, Kylie, Stephen, and Jennifer. So we'll have all of the, well, not all, but many of the Dassanaya community teachers involved, on Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern. All right, so dedicating the merits of our practice today to the awakening of all beings, ourselves and all beings in all the realms, known and unknown, seen and unseen. May we all come to know the truths of our lives. May we find the courage to go beyond our limited views and be complete. By the power of the Buddhas, the Dhamma and the Sangha, and each one's efforts, may all beings be liberated. Okay, dear friends.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dhammadīpā.